It's not often that a new art form is invented in the modern age, but that's exactly what happened when groups of black college students originated their own forms of dance, which we can see now at Arts Emerson with the group Step Afrika. C. Brian Williams, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, thank you. You can just call me Brian.
Well, tell me how this dance first came to resonate with you.
Well, stepping is a really unique art form, and Step Afrika is the first professional company in the world dedicated to this tradition. I first learned how to step on the campus of Howard University in 1989. The only way to access the tradition is if you joined a fraternity, a historically black fraternity, or a sorority.
I'm curious about your knowing of it, knowing that it wasn't so public. So did you know of it and you sought it out? How public was it?
No, that's a really good question because I didn't know a lot about stepping before I got to Howard University. I never actually even seen the art form practice. Most Americans still have not been introduced to the tradition of stepping because for most of its existence, it has been in a part of a closed community.
How did it come to being and why was it closed?
When African Americans first began to attend colleges, majority white colleges at the time, they weren't allowed to be fully integrated into student life. So they created their own fraternities and sororities, and these frats and sororities were safe places for students during these, very volatile times in American history. They decided to express themselves in a very uniquely African way when they chose to demonstrate their love and pride to a broader community. They began to sing songs, do movements in a line or a circle, and these movements and practices grew into what we now know as the art form of stepping. And so our newest production, Drumfolk, goes even deeper into why we step in the first place, and we found some fascinating things in that process.
How much is it about the body and what the body can do and express?
Stepping for me is about the body becoming the drum. But the real question for me was, why did we have to use the body as a drum? Why didn't we just play the drum? At what point in African American experience did we start to use the body as a drum? And that's what led us to the Stoner Rebellion of 1739 and the Negro Act of 1740. Both of these events are what our latest production, Drumfolk, are based on.
What happened in 1739?
Well, it's a wild time in American history. It's 1739 in South Carolina. The institution of slavery is alive and well, sadly, and Africans are fighting against the tradition. They're rejecting the injustice that slavery was. So they lead a rebellion. Word has it that they use their drums as a way to call others to fight. They became very concerned that the drum and that African people were going to resist even further. So they passed a set of laws, later became known as the Negro Act of 1740, that took away the right for Africans to use the drum. And for us, once the drum has disappeared from African people, the body and other instruments become the drum.
So you have been immersed in this for almost 30 years, and to have this new history, how does that inform you?
Oh, it's exciting for me. It's so exciting because it's like, it reminds you about how many stories we still don't know. And for me in particular as an African American, how African American culture developed here and what are some of the clues that we can discover along the way.
So then you go to Africa and you spend time there, and you see the art form, not the same art form, but the art of dance there. How did you make the connection?
The year after I graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C., I went to Southern Africa to live and study. And it's there that I became, was introduced to traditional South African forms and dance styles that were really inspiring and very exciting to me. One in particular was the South African gum boot dance. So I saw this dance. It's created by men who worked in the mines of South Africa, and it's also percussive. The drum is absent. The men are using their hands and their feet to make music, so it's strikingly similar to stepping. But I had never heard of the form, and likewise, they had also never heard of stepping. So the idea was to bring the two art forms together. Stepping meet the South African gum boot dance, hence the name Step Afrika.
And what does it mean for you to do it today?
You know, today it's about preserving and promoting the art form. You know, Step Afrika is here as one of the largest African American dance companies in the world today. We're here to preserve and promote this uniquely American art form. The performance for me basically goes all the way from 1739 to today, and audiences will see the evolution of a form really in this performance.
How key is the audience? In many performance venues, the audience is passive. Is that the case here?
As soon as Step Afrika hits the stage, we are looking to connect and engage the audience. I mean, we really want the audience to feel free to make music, to talk, to share, to yell, to scream. I don't care what they do with the artist.
How were the Obamas as an audience? You were at the White House.
We were the featured performer at Obama's Black History Month reception. Performing in the White House was an honor, but I also love going all across our country, sharing this art form with all Americans.
Well, speaking of all Americans, I wonder what it was like to bring men and women together, because it started in sororities and fraternities, not together.
I don't know if you've seen School Days. When
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee.
Introducing the first of all Black Greeks, the men of distinction, the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
When that movie came out, it really introduced fraternity and sorority life to a broad swath of American culture, of Americans, and you started to see the art form of stepping then being introduced in high schools and middle schools and elementary schools, and kind of step teams sprouted all around the country. So I actually love that, because what it means is that the art form has grown.
I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to ask an artist about something that is, about an art form that is so new, and here you are, you're preserving it, you're curating it, you're taking care of it.
That's what this 29, 30-year journey has been about, exploring the art form and determining, you know, we've merged stepping with symphonies, with rock music, with Appalachian clogging, Irish step dancing, with Israeli folk dance, with traditional African dances from Tanzania to West Africa to really everywhere in the world. We just got back from Bolivia, collaborating with indigenous culture there. So we're really, the art form to us is a way to connect and create. And that's what's motivated us all these years.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for the interview.